Welcome to Hair Metal Chaos with the Guru and Rachelle. My name is Anthony. They call me the Guru. And we're going to get Stevie Rachelle here in just a second. But first of all, Charlie wants to say, hi, yeah, you're here. And you're so popular on YouTube and everybody likes you so much. First of all, before we get Stevie, I wanted to say thank you to everyone that was here last week and thought, you know what? These bald assholes aren't that bad. I'm going to come back again for week 2. And tonight, if you've seen our flyers, you know we're going to be talking Poison, but not only Poison. We'll talk about what's going on in music this week. We're absolutely going to take your questions. Just remember, you come for the hair metal and you stay for the chaos. And the chaos begins right after this. Get in there, you motherfucker.
Metal Chaos with the Guru and Rachelle.
Stevie Rachelle, you're back for week 2. Holy shit, we survived.
We made it.
We made it. We made it.
All good.
How are you?
Nice to see you, Anthony, and nice to see, even though I don't see everybody, thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I don't know who's here, if there's 10 of you or 30 or 50 or 80, I don't know. But either way, thank you so much for coming back for show number 2. Last week was fun. And I got to say, Anthony, this is new for both of us, you know, and as many, like we talked about this last week, you've done, is it over 500 interviews?
Well, I've done like 550 videos and like 110 interviews.
Yeah, so you're splitting things up and then, you know, all the different reviews and roundtables. But obviously, when you go live, there's a few little things that are a little different than if you do it, you know, tape on Wednesday and then put it up on Friday, or tape over the weekend and put it up on Monday. You know, this is live without a net, as they say. And so if we fumble a little bit, to everybody at home, you know, we're not sorry. We're just here doing our deal. And we hope you guys are having fun.
And even there, like right when I was trying to get the freaking theme music to play, like it was like, oh shit, I had to go remove it and add it in. So like we are getting used to this technology. We had to deal with me freezing a couple times last week, but overall, I thought last week was awesome. And I mean, the comments that we've gotten from people, the amount of people that were watching, and we're gonna get it. But you had some notes about last week. Like, what were you? How many people that were here, and people from what countries?
Well, you know, I was kind of like, after we did it last week, I went back and I kind of watched it, you know, not probably the whole thing. I'd watch like 15 or 20 minutes and go, oh God, I really said that, or I look dumb and making stupid comments, probably out of pocket. But either way, you know, and I was like, then I'm going through the chat, you know, and if I'm not mistaken, I think there was over 2,000 comments during the live.
No, I thought 1,906 comments.
Yeah. So, and that was, I think, you know, okay. So it was close to 2,000, and that's different than if I go look at the YouTube right now, there's like probably a couple hundred comments, but those are the comments that are made on the video.
Yep.
The chat, the 1,900, almost 2,000 comments were made during the live in a 2-hour period. So, as I'm looking through there, I was like seeing all these different countries where people like, hey, I'm checking in from, and I made a little note here. I'm going to read them off. Like, we had people in the chat that were from Canada, Australia, Puerto Rico, Argentina, the United Kingdom, New Zealand, Sweden, Ireland. And that's just what I saw. And I didn't even go through all of it because there's almost 2,000. So I thought, wow, you know, and we get it though. You know, the internet is worldwide. But it's really cool that it's 5 o'clock by me, it's 7 o'clock by you, and it's 8 o'clock on the East Coast. But, you know, for everyone in, you know, England or, you know, Western Europe, it's already like 1 or 2 in the morning.
Yeah.
And the further over you go, I mean, for like people in Australia, New Zealand, I guess it's like Wednesday morning or something. So some people are waking up and having coffee, and, you know, maybe they're listening to us while they're at work or something.
I have people on X or Twitter saying, "Hey, we'll see you there," and I'm like, and this girl is like, "Well, it'll be 1 a.m." I'm like, "1 a.m. Where are you at?" "Oh,
Right.
in the United Kingdom," and I'm like, it still baffles me that people want to watch us anyway, let alone all over the world. So it's awesome. So what can you say?
Yeah.
And that video, the YouTube live, I mean, shit, it's 6,500 views in a week, which
Yeah. It's
fantastic.
closing in on 7,000. And going
Yeah.
back to what you just said about people all over, what's interesting is that, back in 1998, when I came up with this idea to create Metal Sludge and launch this online, it wasn't called social media then, because there was no social media.
No.
There was no internet platforms, so to speak. It was just a few websites and probably a couple music sites existed. I think knac.com was already online and they were rolling music. I think Andrew McNeese I think he's in New Zealand or Australia. He had melodicrock.com already going, I think in maybe 97,
Yep.
early 98. So Metal Sludge was obviously there pretty early. But I remember that me and Sean, when we were doing this, we thought it was really cool that we created this little place, because aside from the site, we had chat rooms.
Yeah.
And that was even before there was forums or message boards, but they were kind of early. And then we started with the chat rooms, but it was weird because I remember the chat rooms were limited as to how many people could go in there. So if we'd open up a chat room, it could only hold like 15 or 20 people.
Yeah.
Then we'd open up a second one and there'd be another 20. And then I remember there was people that are going, blah, 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 blah. Oh, I'm in Denver. And then we're seeing people go, I'm in Rhode Island. I'm in Milwaukee. And Sean at the time was in Detroit and I was here. And then we started seeing people from different countries in South America and Australia and England. And we thought, wow, this is amazing, because there was people that would go to a show. They might have just got home from a show and they go, hey, I just saw so-and-so play. I just went to a Vince Neil show. And we're like, oh, where are you? Like, we're in Pittsburgh, So,
Right.
And obviously now the internet has progressed so much in the last 25 years, but I know I feel good about it. And I know you do as well, to see people coming from all over the world to log on for this is awesome. So wherever you're at, hey, let's do this. Wherever you're at, why don't you throw it in the chat? What city are you in? You're in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Are you in Austin, Texas, or Fargo?
If you're following it, Fargo, line it up in the chats.
Oshkosh, where are you at?
Oshkosh, bigosh. And we say this on social media all the time, and everyone here, like, thank you. But man, if you don't mind sharing this stuff on social media just so other people know, that would be awesome, because we're trying to keep this music going and this community going, and you're all part of it. And the more people we get in, the more the music stays alive. And so I wanted to say this before we get into it. Yesterday was Memorial Day. I was in the military for 22 years. I shared this on my social medias. I was in Iraq for a year in 2003 and 2004. And on July 22nd, I was on a convoy. We got a call saying, hey, you got to go pick up this crew in Aramadi. Anyway, I'd been in Iraq for 2 months at that point. And there was a guy specialist, John Fettig, died that day. It was the first North Dakota soldier to die in the Iraq War. And we were part of the crew that picked him up. In January of 2004, 2 more North Dakota soldiers died. Sergeant Kenneth Hendrickson and Sergeant Keith Smeddy. So I just wanted to, what we always say, for everyone that went overseas and never got to come home, that's what Memorial Day is for. So anyway, happy Memorial Day, a day after, to everybody. So
nicely stated.
Yeah. It's weird that for so long the military was my identity. It was like, oh, I was a soldier, and now it's almost like now I know why all these old veterans walk around with army hats, because you're like, oh, that used to be who I was, and it's kind of hard to let that go. Just like musicians who find it hard to leave the stage.
Right.
You get known for being this thing, and you want people to remember. Anyway, I think so. So I'm wearing my army hat today in honor of, all the people that I served with. And I
Right.
wanted to point out, I tried. There's a comment up on the board, but it's from a guy named Ian Scotto Rocks. And Ian Scotto, I've been on his channel. He's been on my channel. He's a really cool guy. And you should go subscribe to his channel, Ian Scotto Rocks. He puts out cool, like almost, it's kind of like what he kind of picks a topic and explains it in detail. But anyway, he was said he was here last week. He was too busy watching the Knicks kick the Cavs' ass. And it's cool to see this happening for you guys. Really cool guys. So anyway, Ian Scotto, thanks a lot, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and I'll say this, I know this guy, I've recognized his name, and I remember the first couple times, I think maybe he requested me or something, or commented on something, and at a glance, I was like, is Scott Ian sending me a message? And then I realized the name was backwards, but either way, hey, Ian Scotto, dude, awesome. Thanks for hanging out. And I definitely recognize his name. He's definitely been around. And Anthony, I like your name too.
Slower Pussycat. Because I interviewed Greg Steele last week, and that was awesome. And if you saw that interview, how the hell does some of these guys not age?
Yeah,
like
Greg looks great.
Younger now than he did back then, almost.
He looks great.
Lucky fucker.
It's funny. Speaking of Slower Pussycat, so when Tough went to Australia in early 2023, we did a tour with Faster Pussycat, Enough's Enough, Wednesday 13, a bunch of bands. And I remember we went to this venue in Melbourne, not Melbourne, but Melbourne is what they say in Australia. And outside the club was this big marquee, and it had like 20 of the upcoming shows for the next month. And our show was headlined by Faster Pussycat. And so they just had their name up there. But whoever was putting the name up clearly was not familiar with these bands, because myself and Chips Enough and a bunch of us, I think maybe Chad was there too from Faster. We were all laughing because on the billboard it said Father Pussycat. And I was like, oh my God, Tammy's going to love that. It said Father Pussycat.
Right. I was just watching this cool YouTube video. So, like, some fan had a camera outside of a venue in 1992 when Trickster and Faster Pussycat were opening for Kiss, and it's kind of surreal because, like, you see all the big tour buses, and here comes Steve Brown, who was here last week on our live in the comments. Steve Brown, from Always, Jovi, and Trickster, and a bunch of other guys were too. But seeing him walk into the tour bus, and these girls are asking for autographs, and it was just such a different time. And it brought me back, man, watching that stuff.
Yeah,
it was awesome.
Yeah,
hey,
and this.
Oh, go ahead.
Thank you. I was just going to say that's Jason. He's got a company called Laser Engrave, which is awesome. If anybody's bought, I don't know, a whole bunch of different stuff from me. I get all kinds of stuff from Jason. He's based in the greater Chicago area, and he does Laser Engrave. He does dog tags and canteens and tumblers and wrist wraps, and he can do anything. Wood, metal, plastic, guitar pick necklaces, just a ton of stuff. You've seen me share his stuff before, and if you Google or search his name, Jason Moot, I think that's how you say it, MEUDT, on Facebook, you'll see his page, and he's always making stuff for not only local bands and bands of our level, but bigger artists as well. He does all kinds of stuff for him, and the quality's awesome. He just does tons of cool stuff. So shout out to Jason and Laser Engrave.
And so I bought some stuff from him, and then I shit you not, he sent me this. I think he sent me this for Christmas, and I had a picture of me and Charlie sitting on the chair. Look at that. It's me and Charlie.
Awesome.
Engraved in there. Unbelievable. And what a nice guy. Like, he's always so supportive of everything.
Right.
So Look, there's people in Kansas City, in Indiana, and here's a comment that I thought was kind of cool because I know Ruby. Every soldier I ever dated was an alcoholic, drug addict, and had PTSD. I know she's joking around because we're friends on X, but yeah, a lot of guys like to drink in the military.
Right.
What else do we got? Oh, there's a ton of people here in the comments. I want to I'm gonna put up one more. I try not to, but here's Brian. Thank you. Says, what's your guys' thoughts on Billy Squier? Do you think he deserves to be in the Rock Hall? Stevie, what do you think?
I think so. Billy Squier in high school for me, which was 81, 2, 3, 4, I remember, Stroke and those kind of songs. What Rock Me Tonight, was that one of his?
I remember the Stroke too back in high school, if you know what I'm saying.
Exactly. But those were great songs. And then whatever the video was where he was jumping around, in his pajama bottoms, it kind of like almost got him canceled. Like,
yes,
he thought it was too homophobic or something, and the whole industry turned on the guy. And I mean, if you listen to those records, great songs.
Totally.
The dude could play guitar, great riffs, great vocals, and yeah, I mean, I think he absolutely should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which, I don't get involved in that whole, everybody gets all freaked out every year when the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame announces all their the entrants, whoever who's going to get in or who's nominated, and then and everyone's always moaning about it. It's like, we're never going to change that. It's like the Super Bowl.
Right.
It's not like next year they're going to go, hey, by the way, we're going to have Van Halen play the Super Bowl. It's just, it's not going to happen for most older artists. I
get where people are coming from, though. I mean,
right.
We all grew up like thinking that our favorite bands never got enough attention.
Right.
And now that we're older and most of our favorite bands, or many of them are not doing it anymore, you're like, oh, right. You'd love to see them get this final award. And then you see an artist that you've never heard of that I'm sure has lots of fans, but you're like,
right.
Fuck, what about Bryan Adams or REO Speedwagon or whatever?
Right.
And so I get it, but I hear you. To me, the Rock Hall really has no legitimacy at all. So maybe we should do like a draft and do like our own Rock Hall and create
the Guru Hall of Fame.
The Guru Hall of Fame, the Glam Slam Hall of Fame with the Guru and Rachelle. That's a good idea, I think.
Yeah, there's so many artists though, and there's so many ways to pick and choose. And going back to the comments, which you just put a few up, something else that happened last week, we did have Steve Brown pop in, and I made a list again going through. I started seeing people, and some of my buddies messaged me. Wednesday 13 from the Murder Dolls was in there. Wednesday's been cool forever. He was on the Glam Fest tour in Australia, and he's also going to be on the cruise, the Monsters of Rock cruise next year. And for people like, I think we talked about this maybe even last week, for those who have not seen him live, he's great, and there's some great records, some great songs.
Oh, I love Wednesday.
Drew from Wild Side was in the comments last week. Patrick from Hairball. Patrick also sings in a band called Butterside, which I'm sure you guys maybe have heard of them. Stefan Adika was in the comments. Of course, Steve Brown from Trickster. Dennis from Tattoo Rodeo. Yeah. Churchill Dries, which you recently, is it Churchill Dries or Drees?
Drees.
He was in the comments. Mike Schneider from Exciter. That rhymes. Yeah. As everyone knows, that was my first band with me and Schneids. And Schneids has been on the cruise before, and he's come to some events throughout the Midwest with me. And, we're still buddies, and I've known Schneid since high school. He used to BMX and I skateboarded. So either way, we've had friends pop in the comments and people from all over, and it's awesome.
Here's one from the Project Band, and Eric Ferentinos is in this band. James from what band? He wasn't in was he in Shameless? James?
Who?
Well,
I've never heard of that band. I know who Eric Ferentinos is. Obviously plays with Piercy.
Now James is in this band. Anyway, they put out a song called "The Death of Me," and I was like, so it's kind of like pop punk. It's amazing. And the main songwriter, I thought he did something with Shameless. I could be way fucking off. But
yeah, I don't correlate that with Shameless. And obviously Alex is in Germany. Maybe he would know. I don't think he's on here right now. Yeah. Alex, where are you?
So anyway, thank you. He loves the channels, and I'm trying to get not just super chats in here, but I'm trying to make sure everybody feels welcome. Here's one more from Lipstick. I think this person and I interact on Twitter. Stevie, I love Tough. I'm so glad you and Anthony are doing this. Tuesdays are the only day I can watch live. Congrats to you and the Guru. That's awesome. Thank
Lipstick you. NL13.
Yes. And so and we'll try to get more comments in. I thought something that we could talk about is just maybe a little bit of recap on what you have going on with Metal Sludge over the last week, and maybe can talk a little bit about what's been happening here on the channel, and then we'll get into maybe some more comments, and then maybe talk a little bit about Poison.
Well, let's see. Sludge, it's funny, you know, I put stuff up and my short-term memory is shot. I mean, obviously you just did your interview with Vicky, which I covered, and I've done stuff with Vicky Hamilton on the site over the years. I've done a couple of interviews. I'm pretty sure she did other podcasts as well. And I'll tell everybody this, her book, Appetite for Dysfunction, I'm not a book reader. I'm really not. I probably should read more than I have, but I read her book and I told her, I actually cried in part of it. You know, I thought it was great. And I know a lot of stuff that went on here, but I got here in June of '87 and joined Tough in July of '87. So there was a lot of things that happened in like 85, 86, 80, you know, in 85 and 86, and maybe even early '87, just previous to me arriving, which was Poison's record came out a year earlier. But in that year before I got here, GNR was signed and recording their record. Faster Pussycat was signed and recording their record. LA Guns was signed and recording their record. Jet Boy was signed and recording their record. There was just like all of that stuff happened within a year. And I knew a lot of the details, but I didn't know all of them. And when I got her book and read it, I was like, oh, okay, so that's how Eric Stacey became the bass player. Because I didn't know that Kelly Nichols was the original bass player in Faster, had the accident. Yep. It was pretty bad motorcycle accident. Speaking of Kelly Nichols, wink, wink, Anthony.
I just got a text from Kelly Nichols asking if we could confirm an interview.
Awesome.
Tomorrow. And I think LA Guns, see, anytime we cover LA Guns, even the interview with Chris Van Dahl, who was on the American Hardcore album, that interview did like 11,000 views. So I think a lot of people are interested in the LA Guns story, and I think Kelly Nichols is going to be awesome.
So everybody, Kelly's going to be coming into the mix here. And but I didn't realize that he was originally in Faster Pussycat. He had his leg was broke very severely. Like he couldn't walk. He was with a cane for a few years, and they had to kind of move along. So at that point, they got Eric Stacey, and LA Guns was a little bit behind them. So then what happened is he ended up becoming, he was available by the time LA Guns was putting everything together, and he jumped into the mix with LA Guns. So, but Vicky's book is awesome. Your interview with her was awesome. I just covered it on the Sludge, of course, and Vicky's got a great history. So if you haven't, to anybody that doesn't have that book, go find the article on Sludge and her little book there. If you click it, it goes to her Amazon. So if you're going to buy it, make sure you're buying it from the seller that says Vicky Hamilton or Dark Spark Music, whatever her company is, because then she'll get the proceeds and maybe even be able to sign it for you.
Yeah, that interview was awesome, and she gave so much like cool information about her dealings with Poison,
right,
and Guns N' Roses. But I I didn't know until getting ready for that interview that she had worked with June Carter Cash.
Yeah, I knew that.
And the album that they worked on, it was called Press On, won a Grammy. And in that interview, she talks about a moment where Johnny Cash comes up to her. He pulls out the album, June's album, and he says, a lot of people are going to try to take credit for this, but I know you did this. And she started crying. And just talking about it right now, I kind of got goosebumps.
Yeah, I saw that. It was a pretty emotional moment. And it's funny because if you think about it, for us, our generation of people, meaning anybody who's between 40 and say 60 with music, like I said, in the All New Generation, which ironically doesn't cover Johnny Cash, but I say Elvis Presley, Richard Berry, Little Richard, Buddy Berry.
Yep.
And that's Buddy as in Buddy Holly, Berry as in Chuck Berry, Little Richard, of course. But Johnny Cash is one of the OGs, like he was around when Elvis was around in the heyday. And think about all those guys that died off. How old was Johnny Cash when he died? He didn't die that long ago, right? 10 years ago?
Something like that, maybe a little.
He had to be pretty close to 80, and talk about a guy that lived hard and, went to prison and did all those things. But, that's about as legendary as you can get when you're talking music. Johnny Cash. And
one of
Vicky worked with June is great.
One of the greatest comebacks ever. Do you remember when the song Hurt? That 9 Inch Nails.
We redid the 9 Inch Nails record with
and that video,
Rick Rubin.
That video that showed all those old clips of him in movies and stuff, and then it shows him old and frail. That was one of the most emotional music videos I've ever seen. And you get to the end, and June's crying, and he is looking old and broken down. That was just an amazing video. So
I'm going to quick look up and see how old Johnny Cash was when he died.
Yep. And while you're doing that, here's a comment from Mr. Nitro Mike, who says, don't have her book, but The Night's Young, going to Amazon right now. That's a good idea to support those people. And then I also saw a comment from somebody who said, I'm waiting for Patrick's book. And if you didn't know, Patrick is he's a member of, he's a part of my channel. He basically runs it with me. He does so much behind the scenes. But he is writing, or has written, a book on Warrant, and it's basically Warrant from like 1993 to Janie Lane's death. So I know he's looking for a publisher, but anyway, that would be an awesome read, I think. So hopefully that works out for him. So
Johnny Cash wasn't as old as I thought. He was 71.
Oh, was he?
And he died in 2003. But still, I mean, talk about a life lived, he was in it for over 50 years and at the pinnacle. So respect for Johnny Cash. And yes, the Vicky article is great. The podcast, and of course her book is awesome.
And I thought Johnny Cash's high moment was when he was on Little House on the Prairie, because if you're like me and you grew up in North Dakota, you watched the hell out of some Little House on the Prairie back in the day. So
was one of the girls named Mary Ellen?
Mary and Laura. You watched that back in the day, didn't you?
Yeah, and didn't one of them used to call the other one a pissant?
No.
Yes.
On Little House?
Hang on, I'm gonna Google that right now.
Nobody said pissant on Little House. Remember Pa and Ma? They tried to raise those girls right, and then they adopted Albert.
Little House.
And then in the later years, Albert had a drug problem, and all sorts of crazy shit happened. It was mass hysteria on the prairie. I love that show, though. I think personally that the world would be a little bit better off if everybody just watched some more Little House on the Prairie.
Okay, maybe I was a little off, so I just Googled it. The pissant quote in the beloved 1971 movie The Homecoming, little Elizabeth Walton is upset because her older sister, Mary Ellen, called her brother piss ants.
That's
When
the
her mother
Walton.
asks her if she knows what that is, Elizabeth replies, "I don't feel like a pissant." The line is a classic piece of family nostalgia that fans still talk about today. The term itself, pissant, is an actual slang term often used to describe small, annoying ants that tend to congregate where people or sweet things are. So I guess I wasn't completely wrong or completely
The Waltons and Little House are kind of close.
kind of synonymous. Yeah.
I was, and if there's anything else you want to say about what you did on Sludge, I was just going to kind of recap what happened on the channel. We did a cool video, and if you are somebody that was in bands, number one, I would love, because it's my goal to basically interview somebody from every band. But we did a video last week where we talked about albums that we never stopped playing, and Terry Glaze from Pantera and Lord Tracy was our special guest to do a video on albums we didn't stop listening to. So obviously, Stevie, we'd love to have you on something like that. We throw out invites to Billy Morris from Tough, and who formerly played with Warrant, is going to be doing a video with us tomorrow on songs that we always have to crank up every time we hear them.
Nice.
And then we did a video on hair metal concert stories, our best and worst. And then I covered, and we're going to talk about this in a little bit, but the Poison 2027 drama with whether they're going to tour or whether they're not. And then on Friday, the Roundtable crew covered, we did kind of a tribute to Poison's Look What the Cat Dragged In album, which turned 40 on Saturday. Holy shit, look at those guns. I haven't been able to lift because I tore my rotator.
I got to flex at least a couple of. Well, so you were saying what was on Sludge last week?
Yeah.
It was either Tuesday or Wednesday, I saw that Ricky Rocket had come out and said, I guess on an interview, he was doing some interviews probably for his Rocket Mafia shows, which were last weekend. I think they were his first shows. But I saw something on Blabbermouth that Ricky had went on a radio station and said, "Hey, everybody, we got an official offer for 2027, and now everybody's going to talk. We're going to meet with management, et cetera, et cetera." Which I thought, okay, and I was thinking about it. That was about the time a year ago in early 2025 in the spring when Ricky said there was an offer on the table. And then I don't remember hearing about much throughout the summer. But then by last fall, I think it was like October or maybe early November, Ricky had come out and, maybe it was on your show, I guess. He came out and said, it's too late now. We missed the cutoff. We're not going to be able to go on tour in 2026. And so was it your show that he did that first interview?
I don't know if it was only my show, but remember Pete Evick said in his interview, because I said one of the reasons that maybe he doesn't want to go out with Poison is he doesn't want to split everything equally.
Right.
And then Pete Evick said in our interview, said, well, he doesn't split things equally. He has it in his deal because he's been more out in the public that he gets more money. Right. So then Ricky did come on and said, and I asked him, I said, well, Pete Evick said that Brett, gets more money. And he said, he said, Brett not only wants more money, he said, Brett wants so much money that it would basically make it not possible to run the band. So he did
run
say
the production of the band.
Yep. So feel free to continue on with that.
And so then, and my memory sometimes is fogged, but I know there was an issue. Ricky came on, then it went in there was like New York Post or one of those bigger online rags did the story where they mentioned it was 6-1. Now, was that something Ricky said on your show, or was that another?
I think that was another interview. He did say that on the 6-1 comment.
Right, where he said Brett wants $6 for every one we get. And I'm guessing he was saying $6 for Brett, one for CC, one for Bobby, one for Ricky.
Right.
I mean, I would hope, even though that's still seemingly fairly lopsided. If it was only 6-1 and those guys got 33 cents each, that would be really screwed. But either way, so that happened last fall. And then I remember Brett at some point acknowledged it, but it was much later and it wasn't too in depth. Well, now last week, Ricky goes out and says, we got an offer for 2027. We're going to talk. Then I actually picked that story up and I ran it on Sludge, I think on Thursday. And within a couple hours, people started sending me and they said, hey, Brett just did a big long post on social media and he's talking about next year. So I went and looked at it and I got to say, I was kind of surprised at how long Brett's statement was, because normally he'll post stuff about, hey, I'm out throwing the football. I'm on the beach. I'm enjoying nature. I'm visiting with friends or whatever. And it's usually a couple of sentences, maybe a paragraph, but this was like this long, long sections about how it's come to my attention that there's some news out there that we've been offered. Let's let Memorial Day goes by, which I wouldn't think they were going to have a meeting over the weekend, but I just thought it was kind of interesting that Brett went into a really long, in-depth explanation. And he also said something like, we know it's not poison if it's not all four of us, Bobby, Cece, Ricky, and myself. And we wouldn't want that, and nor would the promoters or nor would the fans or whatever. And I thought, so I think it's just my personal opinion that I think that Poison is getting to a point where Bobby and Ricky and Cece are saying, we can't wait another year or 2 years. And at this point, 2027, if they did tour next year, would be 5 years since the stadium tour, which that tour was originally supposed to be in 2020. But it was postponed 2 years because of the pandemic.
They toured in 2018, then 2022, and that's it. I mean, imagine.
And just so you know, I went and Googled this. They did 2017, where Poison headlined, Cheap Trick was support, Pop Evil was opening. The very next year, they went out and supported Def Leppard.
I saw that.
Then
tour.
2019 was open, and 2020 was supposed to be, 2019 was the big announcement of the stadium tour, which was going to happen in 2020.
Yeah,
with Motley, Def Leppard flip-flopping,
right?
Then Poison, then Joan Jett, and obviously that didn't happen in 2020, and it didn't happen in 2021. Didn't happen until 2022. So this would be 5 years since that show, and they've only done 3 in the last 9 years. Next year would be 2027. But now it already sounds like Brett saying we'll attempt to do the tour, which I think the word attempt makes everybody go, hold it.
He said that he has stuff already booked with the Bret Michaels band. And I made the point, look, if you were actually thinking that 2027 was going to be a Poison year, obviously, you would have told your booking agent, hey, keep 2027 clear. You know what?
Or at least the summer months,
the summer,
June, July, or
the summer,
late May through early August, and then do all your Brett shows in the early spring or the late fall, you know?
And so that's a huge red flag about Poison. But I think the biggest one was there had, like you, in 2024, Brett came out and said, hey, 2026 would be perfect. 40 shows for an awesome 40th reunion.
Yep. I remember that as well.
Poison. And if they couldn't get it together for the 40th reunion of their debut album, and now he's hedging his bets on 2027, that is why we were talking on the phone the other night that we think the reason that Ricky came out with his statement, hey, we got an offer, is because they want to force Brett's hand.
I think so too.
they want Brett to have to come out and say, look, yeah, I'm in, or no, I'm not. Because if he's not, then yes, I think they're considering going out with another singer.
So, somebody said they could call it Puff.
Puff?
Puff.
So
let's just put a green P in front of the UFF on the Tough logo and be ready.
Okay. Fuck, I wasn't even tracking what the hell we were. Puff, Poison, Tough. I get it. Duh. Yes. Yes, the Guru can read. Ugh.
You know, and here's the thing, you know, and we know that, you know, you said something about Poison or Brett or Ricky some couple weeks ago, and then Pete Evick went in the comments and said something, and I know that Pete obviously loves Brett and they're buddies and he's in that band, but at some point, you know, and Brett's been very cool to me, you know, in the last 10 years, him and me have been good because we weren't for a long time. There was some drama between us, and this went back all the way to the late 80s or early 90s. And a lot of it was really about girls. It was fighting over pussy essentially. But I got to say this, you'd think that whether Ricky and Cece and Bobby all make some good publishing money, you know, Poison's sold a lot of records, and I'm pretty sure their royalties are split even. So a number one like Every Rose and another half, you know, 6 to 8, half a dozen or more songs that were top 40 hits, they've got to get some good publishing money. But the thing is this too, touring money, the guarantees, the money that bands are making right now in 2025, 26, and going into next year, trust me, I know it's way up compared to what it was pre-pandemic. I know what some of the bands are getting. I won't divulge all the numbers, but there's bands that are making a lot of money. And I know that Brett has obviously been a very active guy. He tours throughout the year. He does shows year round, a lot of weekend stuff, fly dates, but you would think at some point that Cece and Ricky and Bobby are saying, hey man, we'd like to go out and do some shows. And if there is a group agreement with those four to only tour as Poison when it's only those four, but Brett says, I'm not going to do 2023 because we just did the stadium tour. Okay, we get it. Hey, I'm going to take 2024 and do some of this stuff with my solo project. Okay, no problem. But by the time it gets to the third year, which was last year, 2025, nothing happened. There was a lot of hype, as you said, and even Brett went in the press and said, hey, let's do 40 years, 40 dates, 40 cities to celebrate the 40th anniversary in 2026. Makes sense. Well, obviously now that's not happening. And so they're already pushed it out there. Ricky said, hey, we got a call, which is, I'm telling you, it's likely Live Nation. Yeah. And Live Nation comes to not even the band, but to their agent, to their respective agent and management company, and says, if Poison's going to go in 2027, here's what we can offer. We're going to do these cities, preferably between this point and that point. And then there's a lot of details, a lot of, you know, a lot of things to go over, as Brett said in his message as well. But you'd think that the other three in the camp at some point are going, well, hey, now you got to move around shows that you've already got underway, and you're saying the word attempt to do it. Why don't we make it happen? Clearly, Ricky and Cece and Bobby are ready to go, but they're also probably not ready to go if Brett's going to say, hey, I'm going to give you guys the same money I give Pete Evick and the drummer and the bass player in my side project. And not saying it's exactly that, but he's obviously wanting the lion's share. Yeah. I think, or Ricky's words were, it's more than the lion's share is what he said.
And some people might be sitting there going, well, why do those guys need money? They got songwriting publishing. But look at it this way. They've always had songwriting publishing. But for the majority of the early 2000s, they were touring almost every year. And now imagine if your income is songwriting publishing, that's part of it, and then touring. And then for 5 years, suddenly it's like, okay, this income that you've been counting on every year is gone.
Right.
Like I make a little bit of money from YouTube, and then I make money coaching basketball. Well, if suddenly somebody said, all right, hey, now you're only going to live on YouTube, or you're going to coach basketball, and we're going to take away the other one, I'd be scrambling. I'd be like, okay, I better figure something else out. So you might think, though, all the guys in Poison are set, and they probably do make good money. But still, when you were used to a certain amount of income, and then you go 5 years without it, even people who are kind of well-to-do are going to be like, hey, I kind of need to go out and make some more money, right?
Here's something else, too. No one's ever talked about this that I've seen. With respect, I'm going to mention their families. Ricky's got 2 kids.
Yes.
He's got a daughter and a son. I know Ricky would love to go to his son and daughter. Guess what? This summer, we're going out with Dad. You guys are going to come on your school break, and you're going to see your dad play in front of 20,000 people in Detroit, and 15,000 people in Pittsburgh, and 15,000 people, and they can go, that's my dad up there. Cece the same. His son, Valen, is this killer drummer kid. He's playing in his bands. Maybe they let Valen's band open up the show in Southern California. There's a couple of bands. Your support, your opener, and let him get 30 minutes. And then Cece's kid gets to go up there and play. Brett's obviously taken his family to some of the shows. And again, I'm not trying to take anything away from Brett, but I know that, this summer, my kids have not seen me play live. I don't play a lot either. But this summer, we got a couple of shows, and my son's all excited. He's talking about coming with some of his buddies, and he tells me he goes to the gym and his friends, they're getting ready to do a set, and his friend says, put on Good Guys Wear Black. He told me that. It made me feel really good.
Totally.
That my son and his friends are listening to my songs while they're at the gym pumping iron. So, I would think, and Bobby's got a couple of kids as well. I've met Bobby's son at some point. He used to come to the shows with Veins of Jenny, was a huge fan. And I know that aside from the guys going out and playing and making some money, it's part of their life too, and we get it, and a lot of people have said this, we get it. Brett is the face of Poison, or the spokesperson. He's the guy that's been out there this whole time. Bobby's not on social media. Cece's just on it a little bit. Ricky's a little bit more out there. Ricky goes to NAMM. Ricky does side projects. Ricky goes to clubs and hangs out, and he got the Heavy Metal Hall of Fame award in January. I went to that at the Roxy, and Gilby got one, and Warren DeMartini, and Ricky was there with some of his buddies and got up and did some songs. And I think those guys want to share what they created and made so important for all these people all over the world 35, 40 years ago. They'd like to share it right now as well. It's 2026.
And I think
Anthony, you just froze. I don't know what happened, but you just froze.
Yeah, I'm gonna hit the refresh button, and I should be right back in.
Awesome. There's me solo. Now we're gonna see if Anthony can be unfrozen.
Okay, am I good?
You're good, but you're on my side, so flip flop, and we're good.
But I was gonna say, like most people that I talk to aren't saying, hey, Brett, you stop doing Bret Michaels' band.
Right.
Nobody's saying that. Everybody's saying, do that. Make the great money. You were on Rock of Love. You were on The Apprentice. You deserve all that success. And I also understand that Brett he can do what he wants, but most of us are just saying, hey, the reason you can do all that is because of Poison. So we would love it if you would give, maybe not every summer, but maybe every other summer.
Right.
Poison. Do 30, 40 shows, and keep doing your other thing. And now I lost fucking people's comments. But somebody made the comment. They said, not Brett, Bobby, Cece, and Ricky did a show as the special guests, and they said it didn't work. Look,
right.
The only way it will work with the other three is if they can use the name Poison. If they go out as the antidote, or the special guests or some shit. It's got to be either they got to get the name Poison, or it's got to be Poison featuring, I don't know, Stevie Rachelle on vocals or some shit.
Yeah. Well, I don't think they'd call me.
Right.
But I do think that maybe at some point the guys in Poison 2 have thought, you know, as the other three, hey, or maybe collectively, outside of having Richie Kotzen play guitar in the early 90s and then Blue Cerceno or whatever his name is for a tour or two, you know, they've always been that band where now and there's all original members. But think about it. Let's not even name all the bands that replaced their singer, because there's 40 of them.
Yeah.
Let's name the ones who haven't. Guns N' Roses, which is owned and operated pretty much by Axl.
Bon Jovi, owned and operated by John.
Right. Metallica.
Tesla.
Faster Pussycat. Tesla. But Cinderella. You know, I mean, there's literally a handful. But then think about how many of the huge bands that had massive success, and some had great massive success with the replacements. I mean, for starters, the Van Halen one is the one that everybody remembers most, especially in the 80s. I was a huge fan when they said Van Halen's going to have a new singer. Dave went solo. And then the Sammy thing, which was technically Van Hagar, was massively successful.
Totally.
No one ever thought it would work, but it did. Journey. Now, Journey didn't change the singer and have success like right away, but all these years later, you know, they found this guy Arnel from the Philippines basically singing in a karaoke bar, and they're still playing massive shows, you know, 40 years removed or 35 years removed from Steve Perry leaving. Firehouse didn't have a choice. You know, rest in peace to CJ. Quiet Riot didn't have a choice at this point. Rest in peace to Kevin. Warrant didn't have a choice at some point. Rest in peace to Janie, even though Robert came in when Janie was still alive. Rat at some point did it with Jizzy.
Yeah.
You know, there's a whole laundry list of those bands that at some point have, you know, Drowning Pool, who had a massive hit with Let the Bodies Hit the Floor. They were given no option, you know, when their singer passed away, and they've had to replace him a couple times, and they still have a brand that's out there. I think that CC, Bobby, and Ricky, if they continue to let it go, I mean, at some point, Brett might not need them or want them.
Right.
And Brett's face and name and voice is synonymous with Poison. They kind of intersect each other.
I don't think that he would make. I don't think he would make a shit ton more with Poison than he makes solo. And even if he made a little bit more with Poison, if he stays solo, he flies in, he does the show, he doesn't have to be on a tour bus for 2 months. Like, I completely get that.
Right.
But I think the point that you were saying about these bands that so many bands have gotten new singers and have had success. Look, if the three other guys went out as Poison or something, if they could get the name, and maybe that's something we want to talk about, if we think they could get the name.
Right.
But let's say they got the name and they didn't have Brett, and Brett was, you know, Brett's always going to do fine because he built that name. Now, maybe the other three, they wouldn't do Poison type numbers. Right. But I think you're insane if you don't think that those three with a different singer wouldn't at least do the numbers that Tesla and Warrant and Great White, I think they would do bigger numbers than those bands, and they would make really good money.
And they'd also be able to pull it off as a package. Like, here's the thing, and we've heard this story. We've heard Robert Mason at some point in an interview, and I don't know if it was recent, it was probably 5 or 8 years ago. He said something that when he got the call and they asked him to be in the band, I want to say it was Joey Allen that said to Robert, because Robert had let his hair go back to brown, and he said, "Can you bleach your hair again?" Can you lighten your hair? And I remember Jamie St. James telling me, he told me this firsthand when he sang in Warrant, that he had went to some shows and there was times when a girl would come up to him backstage and go, "Oh my God, I love your hair. Did you get a perm? I like it curly now." Meaning she thought because his hair was curly that he was Janie and he just got a perm. And then there was somebody that came up to him and told me this. Somebody said, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, "Hey, what's up?" And he's like, "Jamie." He's like, "I didn't know your name was Jamie. I always thought it was Janie." And he goes, "No, my name is Jamie with an M." And they're like, "Oh my God." So the person didn't realize that this was Jamie St. James, not Janie Lane. And I got to say this, no disrespect, but there are a percentage of fans that are huge fans of these bands, but they do not follow it the way the hair metal guru does. They don't follow it the way Patrick did, or Ryan, or some of these hardcore fans, the people that go to Sludge or go in all these hair band groups or Monsters of Rock crews. They know every detail. They know who the second bass player was, or the replacement singer, or the third drummer, or what label. The average fan that lives in the Midwest or lives in whatever city, and the man goes to work and he's got a family and a kid and a dog and a boat and they fish in the summer. He's not reading Metal Edge every week. He's not reading Metal Sludge every week. And at some point when he's driving home and he hears live Saturday, July 12th, Quiet Riot in concert, and they hear bang your head, the commercial comes on around and round, and then they go to see the show and it could have been Jizzy singing for Rat, or it's some other guy singing for Quiet Riot, or they don't know that Robin Crosby had passed away at some point. There is this percentage of fans that do not know that. And there's people that said, when you go 50 rows back to see Skid Row with Johnny Solinger at some point in the 2000s, not everybody there knows. They really don't, and I know some people might say that are diehards, I can't believe that they don't know that that's Sebastian as opposed to not Johnny Solinger, or they didn't know that was Jizzy Pearl as opposed to Stephen Pearcy. A lot of those people don't know all those details. They really don't.
Most people are not us. And you're right. Most people probably listen to Hair Nation during the day and consider themselves big hair metal fans. But if you listen to Hair Nation and that's the extent of your, you don't know what's going on. And I want to get to this, and guys, thank you for this super chat, and I
big really time. Thank you so much.
Yes, I mean it's so cool, and so Brett doesn't care about anybody but himself. I think Brett is a nice guy, but I think he's gotten used to being on his own. He says Poison needs to get Rob Wild and tell their old singer to piss off. Rob Wild from the band Midnight City is and Midnight City is awesome, and he does sing in a Poison tribute band, and he would probably do a great job.
So. I know Rob, and it's funny, we toured somewhere at some point, and Rob sat down with me. Let me ask you, did you interview Rob yet?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Because
Rob wants to come on the channel and do but he's in such a weird time zone, it makes it hard to.
Yeah, because he's in England. But no, dude, he knows so much stuff. And I remember I was touring somewhere, I think it was with Veins of Jenna, and his band was there. Maybe it was Teenage Casket Company. Yep. And those guys were like, "Stevie, you want to do hair metal trivia with Rob?" And they're like, "He's going to smoke your ass." And then he's like, not only will he smoke your ass, but he wanted to do hair metal trivia with me, but it was all tough questions. And he started asking me questions, and I didn't know the answer, and he did. And I was like, "Rob, I'm ashamed. Oh my God." So yeah, Rob Wild actually beat me in hair metal trivia about my own band. And I know a lot of stuff, but he knew stuff that I was like, "Oh my God, dude, I'm fist pump and shout out to Rob Wild," because he smoked me at hair metal trivia about my own band.
Here's Patrick Reeves, Patrick, thank you. Amazing. Stevie, and before I'll answer first and then I'll give it to you, Stevie. What are your memories of CC's Needle Park project, and did you ever hear any of it? Well, if you remember when CC got kicked out of Poison after that disastrous MTV Video Music Awards, his guitar got unplugged. They were playing the wrong song, all sorts of chaos. he starts this band, Needle Park, and Joey C. Jones Joey C. Jones and the Glory Hounds, and then he was in another Sweet Savage.
Sweet
Was
Savage.
going to be the singer. But what I remember is seeing a picture in Metal Edge of CC with blue hair, and he's lifting up his shirt and he's saying, "I lost 40 pounds."
Right.
But that was in his heavy drug phase. You could see his ribs. And, I probably didn't know it back then, but looking back on it now, like that's when you knew the drugs were fucking stomping his ass. Anyway, do you remember anything about CC's Needle
Yeah, I
Park?
remember all of it. So a couple of details. One, when CC had pink hair at the MTV Awards and unplugged his guitar and they had the big fight, my roommate is the one who started all that. Because if anybody remembers, my roommate, who's now gone, rest in peace, Toy Stacy, Todd Wiltz, who's from Harson's Island, Michigan. And I've known him since I first met him on December of 1988. He came to the Whiskey to see Tough and the Zeros. We did 2 shows in one night. I briefly met him that night. And then the next summer, he came to see Tough at the Thirsty Whale in Chicago, got on our bus, never left, and then moved to LA in the fall of '89, and the rest is history. Todd was always dyeing his hair colors. And before he was in the Zeros, he was in a band called the Baby Dolls. And one guy had red hair, one had blue, one had green, one had pink, and one had purple. Todd was the purple one, and he played bass, and he loved the Zeros. Then he got in the band when Danny Dangerous left because he was getting ready to have a child. We all started hanging out with CC at some point, especially after he was out of the band, and we were going up to his house, his mansion, which is up at the top of Sunset Plaza Drive. And then Todd told him, as they were getting ready to do that MTV thing, he goes, "You need to make a statement, And so he convinced CC, who was fucking whacked out of his mind doing whatever, and put his hair up this big, and they dyed it pink, and then he showed up. Well, at some point, then the band became, Adam Hamilton was the drummer, and Adams told that story about how CC walked into a bar in, I think, New Orleans, and saw him playing and said, "Dude, I love you. You're amazing. Give me a number. I want you to be in my band. I'm going to have a solo project, And they hung out that night. And then it was like a year later that CC called him. Craig Bradford was at some point one of the guitarists that was in the band for a period. Joey C. Jones was singing, and that was post Sweet Savage. And after Sweet Savage, he was in a project called Pal Joey.
Yeah.
Then he formed Joey C. Jones and the Glory Hounds, which was with Adam Hamilton on drums, Craig Bradford on guitar, Christopher Torok, who's from Ohio, was the bass player, and he was originally in a band called Liquor Sweet out of Ohio. And then there was a keyboard player, and I forget his name, but he was an amazing musician, had a great voice. So that was remnants of that became Needle Park. Also, I think at some point, Tommy Henriksen played bass, maybe when Christopher was no longer in it. Tommy Henriksen actually recorded a couple of demos with Tough. I think Don't Complain he recorded. And he was somebody that we talked about I don't know if he auditioned. I think he did a demo with us, but that was after Chase had left. Right. But yeah, CC's band Needle Park was kind of a mishmash of different guys from different bands, and a couple guys would be in the band and live at his house for a few months and party. And some of those guys had to say, "I got to get out of here. This is too crazy," and then you get a different guy to fill in.
I don't know who did I just interview and said they were going to try out for CC's band, and said that they went to his house and were there for a few hours, and they were like, "I got to get out of this. This is too dark." Like, so, I mean, I can't imagine. And guys, hey, I'm trying to get to people's comments, and like last week there was like 2,000 comments. So if I don't get you, please keep trying or something. And like I'm gonna put up the super chat one because they're
and shout out to Easy Money 9416. Yeah, they said I do a great CC DeVille impersonation.
Fuck yes, you do. Here's another one. Let's see. Jordan, what does Jordan say? Every time I saw a Kiss in the last 20 years, every person next to me thought it was Ace and Peter. Totally. Yep. That happens all the time. You know, shit. When I interviewed Billy Morris, he talked about Kevin Dubrow calling Frankie Benali and saying, Frankie, it's Kevin. We're going to get this kid Billy Morris in the band. From 10 rows back, you won't know it's Carlos, or you won't know it's not Carlos.
Right,
So,
right.
you know, I completely see that.
And Jordan just wrote, it's total manipulation on the band's part. I don't necessarily agree with it being manipulation. I mean, at the same time, if Kiss went out there and got some guy that weighed, 300 pounds with a bald head to play guitar, or even, Bruce Kulick even talked about this, that when Bob Kulick was hanging out with Kiss at some point, and then he's starting to do some of the ghost guitars, he just didn't look the part. Maybe his hair was already thinning. And of course, yeah, whether they're wearing wigs or not is irrelevant. But, I think Gene and Paul, at some point, somebody had said when they auditioned for Kiss, was it Adam Baum who just said, they said, you're not tall enough. Gene's 6'2", Paul's 6 foot. Ace I think was 6'1" or 6'2". All these guys were tall. Of course, that changed when they got Eric Singer in the band because he was much shorter, but that was after the fact.
He was playing drums too.
He was playing drums anyways, exactly. So they couldn't have Gene and Paul standing on stage at 6'2" or 6 foot with the heels. They're 6'9", and then you got a guy that's 5'6" with the heels. He's barely 6 foot, so it would have looked awkward.
I mean, especially back in the day, maybe not now. And I wasn't there, but can you imagine how many shredding guitar players or amazing vocalists lost gigs because, hey, you're kind of chubby, or your hair or your teeth are fucked up? I mean, that was gonna be a huge. I mean, Michael Lean even said the first question he asked you wasn't like, how's your singing voice? It was, what do you look like? And you were like, well, it's kind of a cross between Bret Michaels and Vince Neil. And he was like, sounds fucking good.
Right. Let's talk.
So
yeah, George was, me and Michael and Todd are all 6 foot or taller. George was maybe 5'6" or 5'7". So when we did photo shoots, we literally, no joke, we used phone books. And there's some photos where William pulled back and you see Michael, you see Todd, and you see me, and then you see George, and there's 2 stacks of phone books underneath his boots.
Hey, everybody, I'm 6'3" and I wear a size 17 shoe, if that tells you anything. Wink, wink. Just kidding.
Do you really have a 17 shoe?
No, it's a 12.
Okay, I was going to say,
Charlie,
that's like,
Charlie
that's
wants
nuts.
To say, Charlie wants to say hi.
Charlie!
Yeah. Look how popular you are. There's 300 people watching you. I took Charlie for a walk yesterday and we saw a rabbit and she was like yanking at the chain trying to get, and I was like, you can't catch a rabbit. You got 8 big boobies. That rabbit's he's going to be faster than shit. Anyway, Charlie wanted to say hi. There you go. All right.
Let's grab a couple of comments. The Guru has big feet. I remember George was short on stage. I don't know how you could tell that. We love Charlie, says Ruby. These are going so fast, I can't even keep.
I know.
Stephanie Mandel. Who's that?
Charlie. There was a super chat. I just wanted to point out that Dillinger Chaos Theory, who I follow on X, says now a big fan of Tough, thanks to me. So there you go, Stevie.
Well, and hey, I will do a shameless plug. We're over an hour in. I just got to tell everybody, anybody that's coming, thank you so much. Thank you for supporting the channel, for Anthony and the Guru, and this whole round table of guys. They do all these videos, which I first discovered probably a couple years ago. And then I started sharing some on Sludge. And then Anthony would give me a shout out. And I've shared other podcasts, articles as well, or videos, and then turned it into an article and vice versa. And he's plugging me and I'm plugging him. And at some point we kind of got to know each other better.
At some point we were plugging the shit out of each other.
That's disgusting. But I really appreciate, all the support that comes from the channel. Obviously, I've been watching Anthony's channel grow. And at some point, I remember when it was probably 5 or 6,000 subscribers, and then it was 8, and then it was 10, and then it was 12, and then he was, a couple of months ago or less, it was like, hey, we're going to hit 15. Then we're at 16. Now I say but you're almost at 17. It's appreciated. There's a lot of work that goes into what he does. All of the interviews and the editing, and any support is great. And the same applies here. The site's been around for so long, but if somebody goes and checks it out, whether you buy a shirt or you buy a CD or a vinyl, it's always appreciated. And a lot of fans have showed on the internet. I go out of my way to make sure I send the stuff out fast. I'll add a couple extras, and all the love. It's appreciated wherever we go, whether it's online, through social media, or here at the channel. And here we are on the Tuesday, number 2. So 300 plus people watching, and everyone's having fun.
300 and over 300 people. Wow. Thank you. I told you, I said, cause I was Sludgeaholic of the month in 2004 when I was in Iraq.
Yep.
And I told you, and I remember thinking, I'm like, oh, if I could just get a gig, even writing a little bit for Sludge, I would feel like my rock and roll dreams have come true, because I was such a Sludge fan. So anyway, thank you for saying that. To do this channel and now to be doing this with you and interviewing people that their posters were on my wall is unfucking believable. So all you people that come watch, thank you. Here's a comment. Stevie, did you ever play? And I think you did, and I never saw a show there, but did you ever play the Mirage in Minneapolis?
Yes. As a matter of fact, if you go to YouTube and you put in Tough, I think Minneapolis 92, there's a show from the Mirage. Yep. And at that show, there's a guy in the audience wearing a Philadelphia Eagles jersey who's throwing ice at me during the show. Right?
Yep.
So during the show, I don't know where it's at, but it's midway through. The guy's throwing ice at us. And I at some point spot him. And I know he's doing it, but I wait until one of the songs is over, and then I confront him. And I kind of have a little bit of an Axel Bach moment where I kind of freak out and I start telling him I'm going to beat his ass. And then he's kind of standing there. And at some point I tell security, if you don't make him leave, I will. Then I leave the stage and go through the crowd and go up to him. And by the time I get to him, security comes up and stops him and grabs him and throws him out, which, again, it was 1992. I was 6 years old. Not my best moment, but hey, at some point, if some guy's going to throw ice, that could have hit me in the eye. It could hit somebody else in the eye. Being a troll, a heckler in a crowd like that, it's not going to work out well in the end. 90% of the time you're going to get discovered. And if it's not the guy on stage, somebody in the crowd's going to grab you by your neck,
Oh, yeah.
So it's not cool.
Absolutely.
Steve of Belleville. Glad I found this channel. I'm 53 years old, and this will always be my music. FC, thank you so much for the comment. Glad that you support it. It's appreciated from everybody.
Yep. Here, Von
Finally
Brown
getting some tough music and merch from Stevie. Vaughn Brown. What's up, Vaughn? Nice to meet you, and thank you for the support and the shout out.
That's right. That's right. Here, I'm going to address this real quick. When I first started watching the channel, you had a girl in the round table. Look, I talked about this in a video, like the people that appear on the channel have changed a lot. Think about your own job and the people that you worked with, and how some people went on and some people did things differently. So the channel has changed. All I have ever said is I wish all the people well that used to be on the channel. And if you're talking about Mariah, I actually recorded an episode with Mariah recently, but things change, and it's it's no different than any other job where you move on and start working with different people. And I love the people that are on the channel now: Patrick, Stone, Jeremy, Jones, Ryan, and And I'll say this, I get a ton of people who message me and want to come on. And
Right.
I love that. I'm like, oh, that's so cool. They're like, I feel like I know you guys. But it's, when you do like all these videos a week to try to bring in new people, it's just a scheduling nightmare. So, but I do appreciate it when people ask that. So
I agree. Hey, Stevie, did not mention the 5 best albums of all time. Gives us this shit.
What?
You did not mention the 5 best albums. People ask me stuff like, what's your favorite band? I really don't have a favorite band anymore. I mean, if you would have asked me when I was 21 what my 5 favorite bands are, it would have been like Motley Crue, Van Halen, Rat, Black and Blue, Dokken, at least during the 80s hair era, like 10 years earlier, when I was 14 or 13 or 14, before I was really into metal, it would have been like Devo, the B-52s, the Flock of Seagulls, Billy Idol, like all the stuff that was on MTV.
Yep.
At some point, I kind of grew out of loving bands, and not to take away from them, but I was more trying to build my own brand, and while I was a fan, I felt like if you get too caught up in being a fan of somebody else, you're not doing your own.
Right.
It's like I wanted to concentrate on me and not worrying about worshiping David Lee Roth or Vince Neil, which I kind of did when I was 18 or 19. Then a couple years later, I was like, yeah, they're good, but hey, you know what? I'm coming for you. I was trying to be that guy. So the idol worship, quote unquote, kind of stopped at that point. And I was just like, hey, I'm a fan, but I'm doing my own thing. So
it's kind of the same. I mean, like I've always said back in 89 and 90, if Sebastian would have told me to walk through a wall, I would have said, which one? And point the direction and I'll walk through it. And then years later, he's blocked me on X and I've done videos calling him out, but I'm still a massive fan, but you grow to be like, okay, I love the music, but the hero worship goes away.
Right. Greg Peterson, how many trannies did Stevie hook up with?
What?
Good question.
Here, Jordan Skoll says, I'm the dude that bought your So Many Seasons hat. Ha ha, your delivery came so quick. Thanks, man. Very nice.
Dude, what's up? I'm stoked that you got that and a boatload of CDs. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's interesting. For the longest time, I'm sitting here with all this stuff, from backdrops to clothes. And at some point, I did see even like Piercy at some point was selling some of his old stage clothes and different jackets and stuff. So at some point in my store at Metal Sludge, I created a section that's stage worn, photo shoot worn stuff from me. And at some point, instead of taking it all to Goodwill and throwing it out or giving it away, I was like, hey, maybe somebody wants a couple of my old shirts or my old hats or belts or stage vests. And, you can only wear it for so long. And at some point, there are certain items, like people have always asked me for a long time, where is the Tough ring? And would I sell it? I still have it. No, I've been offered money for it a couple times. I've been offered money for certain items that I just don't want to let go of. But there's, I can only wear so many hats at a time, and I had a bunch of old cool hats and certain vests and certain stage items that at some point are in that store. I think there's probably about 30 or 40 items in there, all different kinds of stuff if you check the menu. But yeah, that guy bought my So Many Seasons hat and got a bunch of CDs with it. And dude, thanks for the support. It's cool. And enjoy that, Hey,
if anybody wants this shirt, just let me know. I'll take it off right now for the no, I'm kidding.
Right.
Dr. 67 something 67 says, did you see the Poison Native Tongue tour in Fargo? I did. Life, Sex, and Death was supposed to be the opener. And
really?
Yes. And they didn't play, but it was advertised as Life, Sex, and Death, Damn Yankees, and Poison. it was Damn Yankees and Poison, and Damn Yankees were phenomenal. Poison was, it sounded so different with Richie playing. You could hear it, but the guitar tones were completely. So it was good. And that was the first time I saw Poison, because I was supposed to see him in '88 and I got snowed out. My mom wouldn't let me go. So that was my first Poison. But hey, Stevie, do you remember this? I'm gonna put this up on the thing. Do you remember this from Kerrang magazine?
Ha! I do. I think that was in Kerrang. And it's crazy because over the years, getting the Brett comparisons, it was a blessing and a curse, and I think probably more of a blessing. At some point, I guess it became a little bit annoying. Me, I don't let it bother me. But when people go on social media and they make a comment, even in the last 10 or 15 years, oh, there's the guy that thinks he's Bret Michaels. I don't think I'm dressing like or looking like or trying to emulate Bret in any way. And the way I looked in 1987, 88, 89, 90, if I was emulating anybody, it was really David Lee Roth first and Vince Neil, my Mount Rushmore when I first started doing this was Vince Neil, David Lee Roth, Stephen Pearcy, and Jamie St. James of Black and Blue. Those were the four singers that I liked the most. And so you pulled it down right now, but there was an article. It says, long before Tommy Lee honked a boat's horn with his penis, Poison frontman Bret Michaels made his own Blue movie, which saw him playing Hyde the Savoy with his actress girlfriend. Her name was Pamela Anderson. So this was an article that was in a magazine in Europe. I think it was Kerrang, and it was about Tommy and Pam. And at some point there was an inset and it had this little block and it's talking about Bret, but it's a picture of me. And I'm also wearing a Tough watch. You can't see it because the photo's a little blurry, but I would think on the original, it's clear enough. You could see there's a Tough logo in that watch. But clearly whoever was the editor in chief didn't realize that they were adding a photo of me in a story that was related to or talking about Bret Michaels of Poison, which that's happened a couple times, but other times it's been more tongue in cheek and almost kind of be funny, like when Motley Crue did a magazine after Vince was fired. I don't know if it was Hit Parader or Circus or Rip, but one of those major publications did an offshoot mag, and it was just like Motley Crue, the future, what next or something. And the whole magazine was about what Motley Crue would do without their original singer. And they were talking about who was going to replace. At that point, I think Karabi was already being noted as the guy, but it's saying right here, suitable replacement singers. And I'm one of the first pictures they put. And if you look, it says Stevie Rachelle, we say to Poison. And then there's Piercy, there's Terrine, there's Stephen Sharow of Kick Tracy, there's Bach, Kip Winger, Jack Russell. I mean, they even got Susie Hatton over there.
Yeah.
But, I guess for a kid from a small town and coming out to LA, after, being influenced and really finding my way, loving bands like Van Halen and Motley Crue. And then, a fistful of years later, Motley Crue is parting ways with Vince, and to even be somewhat acknowledged by, an editorial staff of a magazine to say, is this guy a prospect? Kind of a cool thing at some point.
Oh, shit. Wait. I mean, were you even approached about Motley Crue? Did you ever hear anything? Okay.
No.
I didn't know.
No. Which I've met Nikki at some points over the years a couple times. I've met all of them at some point. And Nikki has talked about he's given me a couple of shout outs on his show Sixth Sense that he used to co-host with what was the girl's name whose
Yeah, I
dad
can't
was
remember.
the famous somebody will put it in the comments. Her dad was a very famous radio host that did the Casey Kasem.
Oh,
So
okay.
Casey Kasem's daughter, Carrie Kasem, was a fan of ours when she was a teenager, and she used to go see us. And on one of the shows with Nikki, she's the co-host, they were talking with Paul Stanley, and they were talking about the Sunset Strip. And Carrie Kasem actually brought Tough up. And she says, I used to see Tough. I'd go to Gazzari's. They had a cool song called Put Out or Get Out. And she asked a question to Paul, and Paul said that would be more Nikki's style because Nikki was from the Sunset Strip, and Kiss is obviously, a decade previous, coming out of New York, and then Nikki said, "Oh yeah, that's Stevie Rachelle from Tough. He runs Metal Sludge," but we were already gone from the Strip at that point and having success. I think they were on their Girls, Girls, Girls record by the time I joined Tough, but it was cool that Nikki and Paul and Casey Kasem were talking Stevie Tough and Sludge right there on Nikki's show.
Somebody here says in the comments, I have that Susie Hatton CD. Not good. I do too. It was called Body and Soul, and it was produced by Brett. And if you don't know who Susie Hatton is, she was the girl in the Fallen Angel video. And,
I have
then,
one
go ahead.
Susie Hatton story.
Okay.
Finish your story, and I'll tell you.
I was just gonna say, like back then, it's everybody got a record deal. If you were, Don Johnson put out a record, Eddie Murphy put out a record, Bruce Willis put out a record. So if you were good looking and you had some fame, you were probably going to get to put out a record. So go ahead and tell your Susie Hatton story.
When she was dating Brett, or in that exact time frame, I remember I was with some people and we were going somewhere to a party, or we were picking people up and going to a party. And I was in the back seat of a car. And at some point we picked up Susie Hatton, or her and I got into a car with a couple other people, and her and I were sitting in the back seat together. And I thought it was very ironic. I literally probably said 3 words to her the whole way, but we went from one place to another, and her and I ended up in the same vehicle in the back seat. And I thought, oh my God, what a trip, and of course at that point I did look more like Brett, and I had my blonde hair and probably wearing some garb that would have looked like, bands looked in 88 or 89 or 90 or whatever it was. And yeah, her and I are in a car, and we got driven to some party. And again, there was 4 or 5, 6 people in the car, but her and I were literally sitting next to each other, and she's talking to some other girl. But I just thought, I guess you can't help but realize that the guy that everyone says looks like Bret Michaels is sitting right next to her in the car, which was kind of goofy. But yeah, I mean, living here during that time in the 80s at the height of it, it's just, it was a free for all. I mean, just going to parties. I mean, I remember being at a girl's house and waking up and then having to use her phone to call for a ride, landline, and I pick it up, and the speed dial, that on the phone, there'd be like those top 10 numbers, and you could write the name of who you wanted to call by just pushing a 1 or a 2 or a 3. The speed dial list was like Slash, Axel, Tammy, Nikki. It was like all of the, rock and roll, iconic Sunset Strip legend names. All of them were on the speed dial at this girl's house, And again, at that point, they weren't the bands that we're looking at today. They're bands that just had gotten signed or were about to get signed, or their record had just come out. So they were no bigger than, the Headbangers Ball one night a week spin,
One day, probably a month ago, I took a screenshot of my call list, because you called me that day, Bobby Blotzer called me that day, and Michael Kelly Smith from Rat, and I texted it to Patrick.
Michael Kelly Smith from who?
From Brittany Fox. Bobby Blotzer from Rat, you and Michael Kelly Smith. And I texted it to Patrick, and I go, if you would have told me 20 years ago that these 3 guys would have called me in the same day, I would have shit my pants. So anyway.
I just thought of a great segment that we could do on this show. Stevie's old black book.
Oh, geez. Here we go.
So we weren't friends, but some years ago, probably more than a few years ago, I have all of my old phone books from back in the day, from the 80s. And there's not one or two, I have like 5 or 6 of them. And I was going through them. I saved them. They're like a little black book, or red or blue or orange or whatever. And I started screen capturing and putting them on my Instagram and Facebook. And everybody was like, oh my God, how funny. Because I got like, you name it. I mean, their numbers in there. Nikki Sixx, Bret Michaels, Lonnie Vincent of the Bullet Boys, Ricky Rocket. You know, I mean, and I was sharing them, and of course they're all old numbers, but it was really funny to look through it, and then it'd be like a playmate's name or some girl next to her name. I'd put like 3 little stars because she was hot or something. It's kind of funny to look at it, you know.
I'm gonna get. I just wanted to point this. Thank you, stomach turning thrush. Says Anthony's pace and consistency of uploading is genuinely impressive. I went from uploading a video a week to like 5 or 6 a week. I shit you not. I probably spend 8 to 10 hours a day doing YouTube. But thank you. That is really cool. Here's another one. Here's a super chat. Thank you. Hey guys, the super chats. Thank you. I mean, seriously, we appreciate it. The Poison Tour in '93 was originally supposed to be Damn Yankees, Firehouse, and LSD. We got everyone but LSD. You know what? I think Firehouse may have been at the Fargo show, but I think I missed them. I came in just as Damn Yankees.
Got there late.
Got there late, which would, because I was probably drinking or some shit. And here's one more super chat. Thank you. I saw Warrant open for Poison at the Montreal Forum in 1990. Warrant absolutely blew Poison off the stage. I've heard that story many times. Yeah, I've heard that many times. So, thank you.
Yeah, and what's crazy is, you know, back in the day, bands were very selective about who they would play with or what they would let them do. I want to titty fuck Susie Hatton. That's disgusting.
Oh shit! You say it's disgusting.
Well, okay. Honestly, I've never been a boob guy. I've never been a boob guy, and you know, fucking some girls' sacks of milk fat. Like I don't know. It doesn't. Hey, everybody's different though. I'm not a boob guy. I'm not an ass guy either.
I tried it one time, and I'm like, you're sitting on her chest. You're like, what the fuck is this? Like, this ain't doing nothing. So
how do you do it?
So you scroll down a couple pages and you go back to old reliable, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm into vagina. I mean, call me weird, I mean,
I'm kind of a butt guy. I mean, I don't care about big boobs. I kind of like average boobs, and I like a nice butt. And I'm a vagina guy. Yes. This conversation went places I didn't see it going right now.
Yeah, slower pussycat, slower titty cat. But back in the day, there was certain bands that had these rules. I mean, even I remember hearing for years that Van Halen would not allow even a blonde guy to work on the road crew. Now, I don't know if that's true, but I remember Dave saying something once he got his band together for Eat 'Em and Smile, because there was always that rumor and everyone said it was because of Dave. But then when Dave introduced his band, he's like, meet Billy, my bass player. And Billy Sheenan had bleached hair at that point. Meet Greg Bissonette, my drummer, who had blonde hair as well. But, some of the bands, were we competitive back then? Absolutely. We all wanted to screw the other guy's girlfriend. We all wanted to headline. We all wanted more stage room. We all wanted to say our band was bigger, just like our dick was bigger. But I can say that in the last 20 years, as far as what I've been involved with, when Tough plays a festival or goes on the cruise or plays some event where there's a bunch of bands, everybody gets along. They really do. I've never really heard any ongoing drama. But, back in the day, there was a lot of to and fro. And so you say right there, the guy says, Warrant smoked Poison that night, just like we had read or heard about when Poison came out on their first arena tour and they opened up for for Rat.
Yep.
Everyone says Poison was blowing Rat off the stage every night.
Yep.
And I will say this. It was only one night, but when we went to go play with Brittany Fox on the East Coast for 2 weeks in 1990, the first night we played the living room in Rhode Island, in Providence, Rhode Island. And I felt like we blew Brittany Fox off the stage. I felt like we smoked them. And I remember our managers telling us that we sold more merch than them that night as well. Now, I don't know if maybe they didn't have a lot of stuff. We did, but we were also hot. We were young, coming out of LA. We looked the way we look. No disrespect to Brittany Fox, but they were not exactly the greatest looking band when it came to like girls weren't going, oh my God, I love that band. Did they have fans? Yes, but
they had I can't imagine. I was never in a band. I can't imagine if you've been playing for 20 years and let's say, back in the day, you were doing 150 shows a year here and there to 20 years later, go, all right, I'm getting back up on stage. I'm going to sing those same 10. Now, you guys don't play a lot, but if you're a band that still plays 70, 80 shows a year, 30 years, and maybe you get out on the crowd and you see the crowd and you're like, fucking A, yes. I wouldn't know. But sometimes I'm like, how do you play that song for the millionth time and be like, fucking A, this rules? Maybe it's easy as shit. I just wouldn't know because I haven't done it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, bands have, guys have off nights. Finding Vic Fox is around. He absolutely is around, but I think he's stepped away from a lot of this stuff. I sent 2 super chats, but not sure they went through. Stephanie Mandel. That's my girlfriend.
That's Stevie's girlfriend.
I love her so much. She's actually awesome. She really is.
The best. She is. And I've never met her, but I tell you what, after last week's show, because I have her number because we've texted about this show. She called me.
You have her number? She called you? We have a problem.
You told her to call me.
Houston, we have a problem.
That's right. She called me and she was like, you did, because you get done and you're like, I don't know. Maybe it was a disaster. Maybe people hated it. Maybe they thought it was the greatest thing ever. But Stephanie was like, it was so awesome. You guys sounded like you'd been working together forever. And I was like, oh, okay. And maybe she was just saying that to be nice. But anyway, she is awesome. So okay, we were gonna and this has been awesome. I think this week is going great. We were talking about Poison. Do you think that the other 3 guys could get the name Poison? Because we were talking about this the other night. The 3 voted CeCe out. So could the other 3 go, hey, you know what? We want to tour. You obviously tour on your own, Brett. And we want to go out as Poison. And since you won't allow us to make money, maybe they could vote him out. I don't know. But we have said that's the way for them to make it work and to make the most money is to have the name Poison, even if they have to attach it to something. Like Jack Russell did Jack Russell's Great White. If they could do Poison featuring something.
Well, and Twisted here, hey, there's other bands too we didn't even mention before. Jack Russell. Obviously, they don't have a choice. Jack has now passed away, but they had already replaced him. Or Great White had replaced him a couple of different times because there was some issues. And now we're talking about, you just said featuring, like Twisted Sister is Twisted Sister featuring Sebastian Bach on vocals. You know, Skid Row, that's another one I don't think we mentioned earlier. They've obviously replaced him multiple times. He's no longer there. I think this, Brett, Ricky, CeCe, Bobby, Pete, whoever's listening, blame me if you want, but I think that Poison could go out as Poison featuring, and I've said this name a few times, Ted Poley. Ted's a good front man. He still has some of his hair, or most of it, I guess. He's a good singer. He is. I think I think that he could present well. He could play those acoustic songs, but I think if Poison went out, let's just hear me out. Poison featuring Ted Poley.
Right.
Warrant as the support band with
Right.
Robert Mason. Faster Pussycat as the opener, or maybe Vixen, and you know, there could be a 3-band bill. And the thing is, when you put these bills together, you know, a Rock Never Stops or whatever they used to call them, where there's 3 or 4 bands, you know, and they do 30 dates. Even these package tours where it's Tom Kiefer with LA Guns or Tom with Karabi, you know, I think, you know, there's difference in how the tickets sell as well. When they say a hard ticket, if a band takes a venue and says, we're going to play here, Tom Kiefer and John Karabi, those are hard tickets. The fans have to buy 600, 800, 1,200 tickets to fill up that 1,500 seat theater. When they play the Cobb County Fair or such and such a festival, you know, the fair itself, there's county monies involved, or if it's a state fair, there's state money. And the fair plays for 10 days and they say, hey, we're going to have 10 dates. And on 8 of the nights, we're going to have music. 38 special one night, Joan Jett another night, Cheap Trick another night, Warrant and Slaughter. You know, that's a built-in crowd. There's 5 or 10,000 or 20,000 people that go to that fair. They walk around all day with the kids. They go on the rides. They eat the corn dogs. And then at 6 o'clock, they say, hey, the gates are open. Now they can walk in for free because it's part of a sponsorship with the fair.
I'm going to see Firehouse and Lita Ford at Ribfest. It's a $5 entry fee, and the concert is part of the $5 entry
exactly. So, and they're getting paid a chunk of money by Ribfest or whoever's sponsoring it. And if there's 5,000 people there, but 3,000 leave by 7 o'clock, well, there's still 1,500 or 2,000 people standing around that says, let's go watch Lita Ford and Firehouse or Jackal and John Karabi or whoever it is. So that's a soft ticket, you know. And I think that if Poison featuring Ted Poley with Warrant and Faster Pussycat or Vixen, they could play some of those events. They could play casinos. Casinos are also an event or a venue that can wash the money. In other words, if they're going to pay $20,000 to one band and $8,000 to another and $4,000 to an opener, they're going to put $35,000, you know, into the hands of these 3 bands that night. Even if they didn't sell every ticket for $40 a piece, they know that those people are going to stay the weekend. And they're going to drink, they're going to gamble. And if there's 2,000 people that show up and 500 spend $500 gambling, think about all that money that went into the casino now. And they're also eating and they're paying for their rooms. For the
casino is willing to lose a little bit of money on the concert for all the other shit. But I'll say this. I don't think Poison without Brett, if they get another singer, I don't think they're going on a full tour where they've got to play Mondays and Tuesdays. No. It will be the fly-in dates.
Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Thursday, Friday. Yes, exactly. They wouldn't sell enough, you know, like, and I'm kind of surprised, like LA Guns, they just did one of those, a bus tour. They were on the road for 2 months playing clubs like 5 nights a week.
And I'll tell you why that is. There's 2 bands that do that, and they do it a lot. Faster Pussycat is one, and LA Guns is another. And I'll say this because it's public knowledge. Tracy's talked about this before. Tracy's not the biggest fan of being in an airplane.
Right.
He's talked about it openly. He's not a big fan of that, being in and out of an airplane on a regular basis. The Great Whites, the Slaughters, the Warrants, the Skid Rows, the Vixens, a lot of those bands, they literally fly. Quiet Riot, those guys, I talked to Rudy about this, Rudy Sarzo. At his age, he gets up 3 a.m. He leaves by 4. He drives himself to a parking lot. He drinks his coffee at 4:45, and then he takes the shuttle 15 minutes or 10 minutes from that lot to LAX, and he's got his carry-on base. At his age, he's doing that every Thursday. Jizzy Pearl, you know, Jizzy's no spring chicken either. Him and Alex are coming out of Vegas. And
Yeah.
those guys, they fly almost every weekend. And that's why they have all those miles. But there's a lot of flights. There's a lot of airports. Tracy doesn't like that. So I think Tracy would rather say, you know what? Let's go out for, 2 runs of 3 or 4 weeks. We'll do 15 shows, have 10 days off, do another 15 or 20 shows. And Tammy does it as well. Tammy does some dates here and there, and he's not afraid of the flights from what I know. But I know Tracy is like, or Tammy's like, let's do a 6-week tour. And they literally play in a month. They'll play 26 shows.
Yep.
Tammy's a beast. He's a road. And I say that because when you're the singer, it's a lot harder.
Shit, yes.
5 on, 2 off, 4 in a row, 1 off, 6 on, 1 off, 3 on, 1 off. Yeah.
I mean, guitar play, you just go up and play guitar. Singer, you get, even if you don't get sick, just if we did this show every night, after a few days, I'd probably be like, fuck. I'm got to rest my voice a little bit. I can't imagine singing every night.
Yeah. It's a lot of work.
Here's a comment, and I don't know if you want to discuss this. I'm putting it out there that the Motley Crue Extreme and Tesla tour will end in disaster. I don't know if it'll end in disaster. I have stated on the record that I don't think it's going to do the numbers that I said this. Let's say they're playing 15 to 20,000 seat sheds. I think it will average 6,000 or 7,000.
I was going to say there's no way it's going to hit 10. It's going to do 10 or 12 or 15
in a couple venues
in select markets. Detroit, Cleveland, the Midwest, Milwaukee, Chicago. Some of those areas are real strong. But yeah, there's certain markets where it's going to do 4,500, 5,500, 6,000. It's hard, it's hard to draw. And the thing is, our fan base are older people, they're 40 to 60. And for something to really create that frenzy that it did in the 80s, it's younger bands, it's younger fans. That's why when there's a young band doing an in-store, this boy band stuff like BTS, this Asian band, they show up somewhere and there's people standing in line for 2 days to get into the venue. Motley Crue, Twisted Sister, Skid Row, these Monsters of Rock type of bands, those people, they're not going to spend all day waiting to get in line, or just go every time, when there's a show, it's hit or miss because people are going, like the comics say, what time is it? How late is it? Can I drive myself? How much is parking? There's all those things. And I think that's also why the cruises and some of the festival dates have become popular, because everyone's like, let's go for the week on the cruise. We can be in our hotel or be in our room, eat, show, relax, show, pool, show, all within the same venue per se, the boat, I think you just froze again, Anthony.
Did I? Okay.
Yep. I'm moving, but you're frozen. Looking at some of these questions here. I'd love to go on a metal cruise. You're back and you're good. The cruises are amazing. And I'm pimping it right here. This is the shirt from this last one. They're a great time, and I guess some of the festivals on the weekend too, where people can go and see, 8 or 10 bands in a day. The difference with that is that you're having to use a porta potty. Once you leave your car, and then there's all the strict, hey, you can't bring that. You can't bring a backpack. You can't bring anything. You're real limited on what you can carry. Then you got to pay for everything. The cruise, once you're on it, I think it's got a lot of benefits.
I am going next year. I was almost this close to going this year on the 2026 cruise.
Right.
I'm going next year, and I'll just put this out there that me and Patrick is going to fly to Fargo, and we are going to drive to Monster on the Mountain in Nashville in August. So let us know if you are going to be there, and maybe we will meet up with you. So yeah, I think it's going to be amazing. So
it's great time. I haven't been at Monsters on the Mountain. Larry said at some point, "Hey, we got to get Tough on," which we haven't been at it yet. Maybe we'll get one next year. But everybody said that's a lot of fun too. It's up in, what is it, Gatlinburg, Tennessee? Is that the name of the place that it's at? I think.
I don't know, but that reminds me of the Gatlin brothers. Did you ever like any old country, outlaw country?
Yeah, I mean, I guess growing up, my mom used to listen to stuff, and whether it was, and I say this meaning 70s country,
Yeah.
And then in the early 90s when Garth Brooks blew up, I kind of got in a little phase. I went and seen Garth Brooks live at the Forum, and I have to say he was awesome.
He is. I worked security at Garth Brooks, and he was great.
There was pyro. He was swinging on a rope. They were blowing shit up. The drums and the guitars, they had airbrushed, in risers and ramps. And then at the very end, he came out and sat on that stool with an acoustic guitar and sang "A Long, Long Time Ago."
Oh, shit.
He sang American Pie with just him and one light on him, and it was pretty moving. And then within a couple of years in the early 90s, I saw Joe Diffie. I saw Toby Keith. I started listening to, Brooks and Dunn. Of course, I had records by Dwight Yoakam and Clint Black, which were awesome. Just lots of great stuff. Shania came out and blew up. I liked a lot of that country, but a lot of the hardcore old school fans didn't like it. They thought it was kind of too
poppy.
Yeah, too overly produced, and Tim McGraw obviously had some great songs, and Mindy McCready, all those.
I think a lot of hair metal fans, when grunge hit, they started, because some of that Shania and shit.
Yeah.
It was almost hard rock mixed with country. So I still loved like Kenny Rogers, Waylon Jennings, Willie Nelson,
Crystal Gale,
Johnny Cash, old outlaw country. I still love that shit.
Yeah. I was in a mall in the early mid 90s. I don't remember the exact year. I was in a mall and I was walking, and there was a music store, and I popped in, and I just went in to go look at the music. And it just so happened it was a Toby Keith in-store, like a meet and greet. He was there. He was literally sitting at a table with a few records, and there was like almost nobody there. There was only a couple people. And I walked up and just said hi to him. And I didn't really know I knew his name, I guess, because it was there, but it's not like I knew a lot about him. I think it was probably maybe during his first or second record. And then he became a superstar, became huge. And then he passed away some years ago, right?
Yep.
Toby Keith.
He had cancer. And when you saw him at the end, he was a big dude. And at the end, he had gotten so skinny. It was so sad.
Did Stevie just drop a Mindy McCready reference? Ha ha ha. Yes, I did. I'm meeting Stephen Piercy again, August 21st. Merle fucking Hager.
Earl. Oh, David Allan Coe just died.
Yeah. Stephanie wrote, "Rip Mindy." Did Mindy McCready die? I don't remember.
Oh, I think she did.
Oh,
I think
right.
She kind of went insane, if I remember right.
Yeah.
She kind of lost her mind.
Poison featuring the Nelson brothers. I hung out with
Matthew.
I'm looking at Patrick's name here. I hung out with Matthew and Gunnar a couple times.
Did you?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I came home one day and I had a voicemail from Matthew Nelson. It said, "Hi, Stevie. This is Matthew Nelson. I'm the singer for Nelson. Please call me. I'd like to talk to you." And he had been on tour in Denver, and he met some girl that I knew. And somehow my name came up, and we were like on Dial MTV that week. And Matthew called me, and they were going to be playing the Universal Amphitheater in Universal City, which is just outside of Los Angeles. It was Nelson. Tyketto was supposed to be on the bill, and Enough's Enough, but Tyketto had just dropped off, I think. So Enough's Enough opened the show. Matthew invited me down, and I went down there that afternoon, and he was there with Aaron Everly.
Am I frozen?
I just froze for a second. No, you're good.
Okay.
I went to the show and I was backstage. I just went out again. Oh, there I am. But Matthew was there and he walked up with Erin Everly and he introduced me to her and she said,
Hey, Stevie, you're frozen.
okay,
Steve-
so what do I got to do?
Oh, now you're back. Now you're back.
Erin Everly said, you have big muscles. That's what she said to me as I walked up and shook Matthew's hand. But either way, Matthew was cool. And then I went over to his house where he was living with Gunner. They had some place over in Sherman Oaks. We hung out a couple nights and he was a cool guy. And we talked about us maybe doing some shows with them, but it never happened. Then during their show, we were back in the arena. And during the break between Enough's Enough and Nelson, a bunch of fans started recognizing us.
Yeah.
And started getting a little chaotic. So security came up and told us we couldn't be in the crowd anymore. And they brought us backstage. So,
Right.
And then I've seen Matthew and Gunner on a couple of the cruises. They're good guys. They're super talented. I mean, they're like next level talent as far as musicianship and songwriting and musical knowledge and history.
Totally.
And they know their stuff.
People
they
who
know their
thought
way
they were
around an
just-
instrument too.
People who thought they were just put together. They had been
Yeah.
playing since the early 80s
Yeah.
in the clubs.
No, they're very talented. And a lot of those just people that are haters that are like, oh, those guys are fags because they look, blonde hair and whatever, but they're good guys.
We have about 4 minutes left, and there are still 299 people watching. So, wow, holy shit!
Well,
That was
hey,
fun.
let's make a few announcements then and let everybody know. Hey, thank you so much for logging in. If we can go past 2 hours, right?
I mean, yeah, it's not like we have to stop right at.
It doesn't cut off, but
no.
But let's just make everybody know that, hey, again, we're kind of doing this on the fly.
Yeah.
We've done this now. This is our second time, and we're kind of starting to experience what works, what doesn't.
Yeah.
Who's good looking, who's not as good looking.
Yeah, right.
So, but we're stoked that you guys want to log on, and every week we'll have, I don't know, a couple new things to talk about. I think the poison thing is interesting. Yeah. I really think that Ricky and Bobby and Cece at some point, I think that they're going to pull the trigger, and I don't think calling themselves some odd name, I don't think that works.
No,
I think maybe getting some name 80s guy to step in and front the band for some shows, I think it might be a good idea. Or even people would say, oh, they can't get a tribute guy to front the band. But when people said Journey's bringing in a guy who was a karaoke singer from the Philippines, of Asian descent, it's just everyone's just like, there's no way, but it's worked. I mean, think of this. Some other band we didn't mention. Judas Priest replaced Rob Halford when he left the band with a guy that was in a tribute.
Yeah. It's
Tim
all
Ripper
about the
Owens
name.
Tim Ripper Owens fronted Judas Priest. Yeah.
If you have the name, you have the power. Because like you said, most people don't know. I mean, look at what Neil Sean, he put a ton of money and got a bunch of talented guys in Hardline. Then he did that Soul Circus with Jeff Scott Soto.
Right.
But those bands didn't work because they weren't called Journey. Right. And then he gets some Asian guy named Arnell, who is a tribute band singer. But if you throw it into a band named Journey, that is why I firmly believe that if those three, I don't care if they get I think it would be good to get a name 80s singer. But even if they got a Poison tribute band, if they can call it Poison, it's going to sell some tickets.
It is. And I think that they could line the bill with a couple solid openers, and they might have to accept the fact that maybe they can't go out and do 20 shows in a month. Maybe they've got to do a couple of festival weekend appearances. Maybe they've got to put a package together that goes out and does a Friday, Saturday, and they do, Milwaukee and Minneapolis one weekend, and then a Cleveland and a Detroit one weekend, and a Dallas and a Houston one weekend, and a Denver and a Salt Lake, a Boston and a,
don't you think a lot of bands like that? Like, instead of going on a tour bus, hey, we don't have to work every weekend. Maybe we play 50, 75 shows just on the weekends. The flying and the traveling obviously sucks, but then you're back in your own bed Sunday through Wednesday or Thursday.
Right.
I think a lot of bands probably prefer that to getting on a tour bus and going, all right, we're out on the road for 3 months, looking at these guys every morning, sitting on the bus. I think a lot of bands like that. What the fuck?
Yeah, and
old guy.
I gotta say, there's so many comments here. Can you see how many comments have actually been in here today?
I don't know how to figure, but there are still 315 people here.
Yeah. As far as the comments, though, I just want to say to everybody, it's so hard to keep this going and also keep track of everything that's being said. Because I see a lot of people are saying stuff in here. They're making comments to me or to you, or they're mentioning things. And I'd love to be able to, you guys can see a lot of it in your own feed.
Yeah,
I know that I've done this. Yeah. And they can talk amongst themselves and
they know.
Make funny comments, but it's so hard to just keep track of it. There's so many. Wow. Yeah. It's like I'm so Stevie's frozen. Yeah. Okay. I got a little weirded out there, but now we're fixed. But yeah, there's so many people here that are supportive. It's cool. I love the fact when is Tough going to Argentina? It's crazy. And we hear this too. When are you playing wherever? It's not our choice.
Yeah.
We don't get to do it. The promoter, the club owner has to say, you know what? We want to bring Warrant here. We want to bring in Jackal. We want to bring in Tough and Enough's Enough, or we want to bring in Tesla. And obviously, depending, we're a club band, and for us to get on the cruises or a bigger festival, and we get added as the first, second, or third slot band out of an 8 or 10 band bill, we're stoked. I'm happy to go on first, second, or last, but it's not really always our call. And your local clubs that continue to book the same bands, and I also book a lot of the tribute bands, because tribute bands draw people. People want to see these guys dress up like Kiss or the old Motley Shout at the Devil. I've seen some of these tribute bands are pretty amazing looking. The clothing that they've put into it.
Why do you think Steve Brown is doing Always Jovi? Now they're not dressing up, but he knows. The first Always Jovi show, 900
plus tickets.
And I hate to say it, but Trickster ain't not sold 900 tickets.
No, they'd be stressed. They'd be pushing it to sell 200 tickets.
Right.
And that's not a diss. I love Steve. No. I love Trickster. Steve and me have become really good buddies in the last few years. But again, it's really hard to show up in all these places. I'd love to, but it's not my call, Yeah.
You need and like, I'm in Fargo, we don't get shit. It sucks. And we have some decent venues that will hold, for a band that sells 500 to 1,000, or that sells 3,000. But it seems like, I don't know, maybe they just haven't been selling well lately. But I saw the Stephen Piercy, Bret Michaels show. There was at least 3,000-4,000 there. Somebody says we should start a hair metal guru fest. Stevie, let's organize a hair metal chaos concert promoted by the Hair Metal Guru and Metal Sludge. We'll make it in California. I'll come down. We'll get fucking, I don't know, bands like Rhino Bucket and shit to play. We'll have Tough play. It'll be awesome.
Yeah. It's funny. People always say that too. They're like, hey, why don't you do this? You do that. Getting you and me and Patrick, or three of us to get a round table on a Wednesday night at 6 o'clock. That takes time. That takes
Yeah.
energy. What time do you get off work? What time do you got to do this? What
Right.
time does Stephanie need you over to do the dishes? You know, it's like I have responsibilities and I got to do the dishes when I go to Stephanie's because she usually cooks the dinner. So, you know, to all the people that have those ideas, it's, you know, there's a million great ideas.
Totally.
Making them happen is
Totally.
is the challenge. And then once you do it, who's going to go out and buy the tickets and show up and say, yeah, we'll be there for the whole night?
Yeah. Yep. I think we have 307 people here. We've gone for 2 hours and 4 minutes.
Yep.
I think, and I'll just say this. I mean, I thought last weekend was fine, but I thought tonight was fantastic. I think we're only going to get better. I like today we came in with a plan to talk about Poison. I would love to talk about Skid Row at some point because I think it would be interesting to talk about their singer search. Metal Sludge just did an article this week on the fact that they have received like 300 application videos. So I would love to talk about that, and then we can hit on the Sebastian Bach stuff. But this has been awesome tonight. Thank you to everybody who's been in the comments and for sharing and telling your friends and promoting this, because man, without you guys, we're just a couple bald fucks sitting and talking about music. So
that was an insult.
You call me a bald fuck all the time.
Fuck. mentioning the Skid Row thing, and we could talk about this more. I've watched some of those, and it's funny. When I managed the Swedish band, which I met in 2005, and they actually came here to God, it might be to the day. They came here like the third week of May in 2006 to live in my house for the summer. So 20 years ago. And they had a lot going on. I mean, people were turning their heads, whether they walked in a club or played a show, no matter where they went, they turned heads. But me as their manager, I was their worst critic. I tore them apart. Every time they did something, I told them everything they did wrong. And I remember them saying, "Why do you always tell us what we did wrong?" You're like, "You're not support." I'm like, "I'm your biggest cheerleader. I'm your biggest fan." All the girls, they love you no matter what. All those guys lined up that think you guys are the next cool band, they love you too. But I'm here to tell you what you're doing wrong and to fix it. And when I watch the Skid Row auditions, I'm looking at it from a manager's point of view.
Yeah.
First couple things I saw that I really thought were not favorable for them. When somebody comes out to audition for Skid Row and their video, they're wearing a Rat shirt or a Motley Crue shirt, not good.
Right.
Bad presentation.
Yeah.
I saw some other guys literally singing the lyrics like this. Ricky was a young boy. He had a heart of stone. I'm thinking, you're reading the lyrics on the video? Like, put them up on a poster board in the distance.
Yes.
There was one guy that actually sang pretty good. He was literally reading it during the chorus.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, the guy might have a great voice, but again, I thought the presentation was bad,
Yep.
And there was a few of them that, and again, I don't know who their advisor was, but there was so many of them that were walking out with like, Motley Crue shirts and studded wristbands. And I'm thinking, if Skid Row was in 1989 and they were 22 years old, that might've been the case,
Right.
And some of these people are young, but when you get to the next level, and Skid Row's the next level.
Yeah.
They're not picking some random kid
No.
who's okay. It's like, you got to come in and slay, and Eric Grunwald, forget about it. That dude is as fucking,
Totally. Totally.
Him and Dino Jalusic are probably, and that guy from that band from India, those three guys are by far the best younger generation singers that I've heard in the last 20 years.
Right.
Dino Jalusic's like maybe 30. Grunwald's what, 35-ish?
Somewhere, I don't know.
Yeah.
Early 30s.
But you know, Eric wouldn't have been probably good for the band at 22 or 24 10 years ago. He's probably still a little green. And I see some of these young singers that I think they have potential, but I just think that there's some things they did wrong with their quote unquote audition. So
Yeah.
I'm the guy that would find everything wrong with what they did. Like all the things that are good, they don't need to fix those. You need to fix the other things that are not good, you know?
Yeah.
And I think if you're going to audition for Skid Row on video for the whole world to see, you can't be holding the lyrics up like this as you're singing it.
No.
It's just, you know,
No,
that's
you're right.
that's rules 101, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
You want to read some comments there?
Well, do you want to wrap it up here pretty quick?
Yes, I'm ready to go.
No,
If you wanna finish
yeah.
those couple comments.
Yeah. So I think, you know, we'll come up with a plan for next week, but we've still got 315 people on here. Thank you so much, you guys. Tell a friend. We will be back next week at 7 p.m. Central Time, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. And, you know, spread the word. And you guys are the best. Thank you so much. Stevie, you were awesome tonight.
You're awesome too. And let me say this: like, subscribe, what the hell, ring the bell. If you're on your phone, hype the video, make some comments. And I ask this: share this with at least 3 friends.
Yeah.
Maybe 5.
Yep.
I'm going to know if you're popular. Share
Yep.
it with 10 friends.
Yeah.
And of course, visit Metal Sludge.
Yes.
Read the articles, share them. Click on the store link. I got all kinds of stuff, not just my music. You know, of course, there's CDs and vinyl.
Yep.
There's t-shirts. There's all kinds of swag, from beanies to hoodies, girls' baby dolls, and all kinds of stuff. I think there's almost 250 items in Anthony's channel. You know, you guys have options too. You can sign up and be a warrant member or a Cinderella member or a Motley Crue member, and you get a few extra perks. And, you know, hey, thank you so much for everybody that's supporting this little crazy thing we're doing, and all of the Guru's other videos, roundtables. And man, do I look a little rough. Are my ears sticking out that far? I kept trying. I don't want to have my ear. I look like an alien a little bit. Oh my God. What? Are my ears that big? Holy
What the fuck is wrong with you?
I am pulling them out a little.
Do you fly with those things or what?
Oh my God. Holy shit.
Okay, guys. Yep. Please go visit Metal Sludge. If you would subscribe to the channel, tell everybody about next week. And, you know, remember, you come for the hair metal, but you stay for the chaos. We'll see you guys next week. All right.
Rock and roll.